Rock and roll quotes music fans will enjoy. Don't forget subscribe. If you tried to give rock and roll another name, you might call it Chuck Berry. Elvis may be the king of rock and roll, but I am the queen. Rock and roll is not just music, it is a way of life. It has its own spirit. I am the innovator. I am the originator. I am the emancipator. I am the architect of rock and roll. I was always drawn to gospel music and the roots of African American music. It's the foundation of rock and roll. Rock and roll is, and should be, a kid's place. If you want to release your aggression, get up and dance. That's what rock and roll is all about. The great thing about rock and roll is that someone like me can be a star. There will never be another Freddie Mercury, one of the greatest rock and roll singers. Rock and roll is a contact sport. I enjoy playing the tunes that really get the people going. Rock and roll has no beginning and no end, for it is the very pulse of life itself. My mom passed away a day before high school started, and her dream was for me to be a full rock and roll guy and play drums in a band. Every 15, 20, 25 years, a new rock and roll record needs to come out, and a new rock and roll band needs to come out. The Ramones are an original rock and roll group of 1975, and their songs are brief, to the point, and every one a potential hit single. Rock and roll will never go away completely because it's so fundamentally attractive. Rock and roll is a poison put to sound. If you think you are too old to rock and roll, then you are. Rock and roll starts between the legs and goes through the heart, then to the head. As long as it does those three things, it's a great rock song. Rock and roll, music for the neck downwards. Rock and roll is a nuclear blast of reality in a mundane world where no one is allowed to be magnificent. Rock and roll has probably given more than it's taken. Rock and roll might not solve your problems, but it does let you dance all over them. If you really want to annoy me, ask me when I'm going to retire from rock and roll. I think a lot of people came into rock and roll to try to change the world. I came into rock and roll to make music. Rock and roll will never die. There will always be some arrogant little brat who wants to make music with a guitar. Rock and roll keeps you in a constant state of juvenile delinquency. For me, rock and roll is about the freedom to express yourself very loudly. If I hadn't heard rock and roll on the radio, I would have had no idea there was life on this planet. You see, rock and roll isn't a career or hobby. It's a life force. It's something very essential. Rock and roll is not one music but many. Rock and roll music, if you like it, if you feel it, you can't help but move to it. That's what happens to me. I can't help it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget subscribe.